Hey everyone, Firegrass here, and today I'm going to be doing a short video talking about the implication of the Conqueror maps that are coming in 3.17. For those of you who haven't seen yet, GGG just announced that in the coming patch, we're going to be getting a dedicated Guardian tab in our map stash. Now, what this means is that you'll have a dedicated place to store all of your Shaper and Elder Guardian maps. Putting them into your map tab isn't going to cause them to get lost forever, right? But in the preview picture, they also showed us that there are Crusader, Redeemer, Hunter, and Warlord map spots, right, as you can see here. And that has a lot of implications, and that's what we're going to be talking about today in the video. Put together a whole list of the various implications, and we're just going to go through these point by point real quick. So to start off with, Cirrus and the Conquerors are probably going to be accessed via fragments and maps only from now on, so it is a very safe bet that they are taking Conquerors and Cirrus out of the Atlas. We're getting our third ever, big Atlas, right? So the first one was the Shaper Elder Atlas, and that went through a few iterations, and then we got the Cirrus Conquerors Atlas, and that went through a few iterations as well. We've had it at 8 regions, and we had Maven added on, and we got 4 regions. And so now we're getting a whole new one where there's going to be a new replacement for Cirrus or Uber Elder. There's going to be new mini bosses to replace the Conquerors, that sort of thing. And so presumably you're going to basically access the Conquerors via the Conqueror maps, which I assume will drop from map bosses, and then those will drop fragments, and then you'll be able to fight Cirrus presumably by putting 4 fragments into the map device, just the same as when you fight Shaper or Elder. Now, this also means we're getting new endgame farms, presumably, right? And I don't see why these endgame farms would really be attached to each other. I think they're going to be 2 separate farms, unless you really enjoy them like I kind of do, and then you might run them together. But basically, one is going to be trading for the Conqueror maps, and then farming the Conqueror maps and producing fragments that you sell, as well as also collecting all the other loot. So don't forget that Conquerors also drop the Awakened support gems as well, and Conqueror exalts, right? Obviously at a lower drop rate than what woke gems drop from Cirrus, but they still drop. And then you're also going to then have Cirrus farming, which is probably taking the 4 fragments that drop from the Conqueror maps and then putting them together in the map device and then just killing Cirrus, right? And you're going to be doing that for the Awakener Orb. You're going to be doing that for all of the Awakened support gems. I believe some of them can't drop from Conquerors and they have a higher chance to drop from Cirrus anyway. And then there's also the unique loot that Cirrus drops, so like Thread of Hope, Crown of the Inward Eye, that sort of thing, Savior, I guess, if that's up your alley. But yeah, and so I think this is going to basically be in the same vein currently that the Guardian farms are and the Shaper Elder farms are, although I think the Conqueror farm is going to be far more expensive. I could very well see Conqueror maps being, upwards of 30C each, maybe even more. I don't think there's going to be an invitation attached to them, right? So you can see I put a little point here, potentially new Maven invitation. I don't think so. I think they want to get rid of Maven content. I don't think they really enjoyed it much, and I don't think they enjoyed what it did to the game. And the loot wasn't very exciting for it. And on top of that, I think Conquerors, they're all really designed heavily around their arenas, and so taking away their arenas and chucking them in the Maven arena makes it not only hard to design that fight, but I think a lot of those mechanics will lose their impact. So I can't see them doing that. But yeah, basically, I think regardless of whether that happens or not, Conquerors are going to be much more expensive. They have the best loot and they're the easiest to farm. Not only do they have highly telegraphed mechanics with higher visual clarity in those fights, they also don't have phasing, right? So if you have a character strong enough to one-shot a Conqueror, for the most part, you get to do that. And you can't do that at the moment, really, with a lot of the, think of Chimera, right? Chimera is it's going to take you a few minutes to down Chimera once you get into the boss room, just because of all the phasing, for example. So, Hydra's another one. You deal damage to Hydra, she teleports away, right? So these farms are going to be much easier, quicker, and they're going to have the best loot. I think Conqueror maps are going to, cost way more than the Shaper and the Elder Guardian maps. This all means that Awakener Orbs, Conqueror Exalts, Awakened Gems, etc. are probably going to be much rarer, right? They're not going to be dropping for free. On the current Atlas, everyone, just for playing the game, gets the attempt to drop these items just from doing the bosses, right? And that's not going to be a thing anymore. They're just simply not going to be dropping for free. They're only going to be dropping from the people doing their farms, and as I already explained, I expect the farms to be pretty expensive, which means we could be seeing these items going even further up in price than what they already are. I don't think it'll get so high, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see Awakener Orbs costing 8 Exalts, stuff like that. Now, there's a very big possibility that GGG ups the drop rate on these items to alleviate this sort of problem. I don't think they want this kind of loot being extremely out of reach for casuals, and I don't think it'd be very fair to casual players to have, just common items like Awakener Orbs be that unobtainable, especially since they've now been in the game for a bunch of years already. I think if anything, they would want to make these items more accessible, not less. So it's potentially going to be the case that these items are super rare, but GGG also could step in and do something about that to change that. I think one of the main implications is that Arc and Go farming is probably going to get better value due to Conqueror maps. Now, I think the Maven passes are being removed from the game, and that means that Arc and Go farming will lose a little bit of value, but just being able to drop Conqueror maps, I think it's going to increase the average amount of Chaos Orbs you get from killing a map boss to go way up. I think this is a really big win for casual players, of course. If these Conqueror maps are in the range of 30 to 40 C, and they have similar drop rates to the current Elder and Shaper Guardian maps, which I suspect they will, that's a lot of extra money coming in without really doing any specific farm, and I think that's really, really good for the game. And then finally we have basically just a new form of power creep in the form of the replacement for Watcher's Eyes and Work Orbs. Now, those items aren't going away, don't get me wrong when I say the replacement loot. I just mean that every time we get a big Atlas update like this, the main boss drops a really cool type of loot, right? That is very accessible to a wide variety of players. So when it was Elder and Uber Elder, we got the Watcher's Eye, and as you know, Watcher's Eyes can be used by pretty much every build, and they have a lot of jackpot outcomes. There's a lot of variants on them. They're great, right? And then you have Woke Gems or Awaken Gems, which pretty much every build that I've ever played needs at least a few of these gems, in order to access higher levels of power. And on top of that, Cirrus was also dropping the Awakened Orbs, which, most builds also had a good use to awaken or slam one or two items in the build, right? And obviously not every build, but yeah, so if we get anything along the lines of these types of loot, power creep, basically. That's, I think every build pretty much is going to be able to benefit from whatever the new type of loot is, whether it's something along the lines of Work Gems or a Watcher's Eye, which is like a high variance jewel or something like that. But yeah, I presumably, everyone's going to be able to benefit from it, everyone's going to get a little stronger, and it's probably going to feel good for everyone too. My judgments, basically, I think it's going to be really good for casual players, because, Conqueror maps dropping just means more loot, more currency in the hands of people who don't want to take this game as seriously as a job, which I think is really good. It's going to be good for veteran players who enjoy boss farms. We're going to have two new boss farms in the form of the Conqueror farm and the Cirrus farm. So that's good, right? More choice is always good, even if you don't enjoy them. The option's there, so, it's up to you guys. It's going to be good for everyone who hates Cirrus. I know a lot of people hate Cirrus. I love Cirrus. Cirrus is my favorite boss in any, action RPG ever. But, yeah, a lot of people hate him, and I think it's really good for the people who hate him. You're not going to be forced to do him, right? And it's, I guess, even good for people who love Cirrus, because if you love Cirrus, you could just chain him back to back with fragments now, rather than having to, wait the period of time required to proc him again. And then I also think it's good for everyone that enjoys power creep. I don't mean this in a sarcastic way or anything. I genuinely enjoy power creep. I think power creep's great. Everyone feels stronger. Yeah, for me, that's good. I'm not a solo found hardcore anti, where I enjoy the game being super punishing and super hard, etc. I enjoy just stomping on the game and stomping on all the content and feeling like a god. So yeah, everyone that enjoys power creep like me, this is great for you too. So overall, I think this is just a really good outcome. I think Conqueror maps and Cirrus is only going to be positive for the game. That doesn't mean that it was bad that they're the current Atlas endgame, but I think everyone wants change, and bringing in new types of loot and keeping in the old types of loot, I think it's really good that we're not just banishing Cirrus and Conquerors from the game forever, like we are doing to Scourge, right? I think keeping that stuff in the game and then adding on top of that, yeah, really good. And obviously this was going to be a good change. I don't think there was any world where I was going to give any kind of negative impressions on this, but yeah. Overall, really good. I think everyone should look forward to this. If you like this video, give me a like, comment, and subscribe. And as I mentioned yesterday, I would really appreciate it at the moment, because the algorithm is not a big fan of me after I took my break. So any interactions I can get on this video, I would really, really, really appreciate. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next one.